Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be looking at McLaren and doing a review of their 2023 Formula One season. So of course their two drivers this year were Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Norris in his fifth season of Formula One, and of course Piastri, a rookie coming into F1 this year after a massive controversy in the summer of 2022, basically the fiasco. Anyway, for the head-to-head between Norris and Piastri, Norris was decisively the quicker driver of the two this season, but that being said, Piastri I think had a pretty impressive rookie season going up against a driver of Norris's caliber. So in the points head-to-head, Norris had the advantage there, 205 to 97. So about basically 66% of the team's points. And yeah, pretty good for Norris in the races. I think that really showed up here as well. Average finishing position, 7.3 for Norris, for Piastri, 9.1. Qualifying head-to-head was actually closer than in the race, so it suggests that Piastri's qualifying pace is quite good and quite close to Norris. In the second half of the year, I think it was very close to 50-50 between the two. But in it's really the races and entire management specifically where Piastri kind of has some work to do going into his second season. So qualifying head-to-head, 16-6 in favor of Norris, with an average qualifying gap of about 0.2 of a second, 0.206. And I think, going into this season, of course, Piastri replaced his fellow Aussie, Daniel Ricciardo. So just for reference, Ricciardo's qualifying gap in 2022 was just over 0.4 of a second, 0.437. So basically, Piastri is about half of that, so about 0.2 closer to Norris. So I think shows that it was the right decision by McLaren to put Piastri in the car this year. Average starting position, so very similar to the qualifying stats, 7.1 for Norris, and for Piastri, 9.2. Average position on my power rankings, for Norris, I thought he was one of the best drivers this year. Average power rankings of 4.6 for Piastri, a little bit above average, but still as a rookie that's really good, 9.6. Looking at podiums, Norris of course had 7 podiums this past season, unfortunately no wins, and for Piastri he had the 2 podiums at Japan and at Qatar. And of course, one of the big stories with McLaren's 2023 Formula One season is the fact that they started the season so poorly and they were arguably the 10th or 9th quickest car, and by the end of the season on certain tracks they were the second fastest car. So average qualifying position for the first 11 races was 9.8. So of course there was a couple races like Spain and Austria in the first half of the season where they either brought their upgrade already, or in Spain it was just really a fluke with the weather, where they had some pretty good qualifying positions. So this number isn't as dramatic as it would have been if those races weren't involved. But anyway, 9.8 for the first 11 races, and the second half of this season, it was 6.8. So that's a jump of 3 positions on average, which is still very, very large compared to any of the other teams I've looked at. Points, it's very similar as well. 87 points in the first 11 races and 215 in the second half of the season. So that's basically like almost a reverse of what the Aston Martin's was, where Aston Martin had almost 200 points in the first half, and they had less than 100 in the second half. So basically a complete flip compared to Aston Martin. And of course, that very strong second half this season, I think, as well as Piastri, I think, being quite a bit stronger than Stroll, meant that McLaren were able to finish ahead of Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship. So speaking of Constructors' Championship, moving on to looking at the last 4 seasons for McLaren and how they've progressed as a team. 2020, 202 points, third in the Constructors, average pole gap of 1.129 seconds. I think that was the year, of course, where Ferrari had their fantastically poor engine. And that was a massive improvement from 2019, which of course was a massive improvement from 2018, where they had such an awful car. And for basically the second half of the season, it basically forced Alonso into retirement. They were a bit fortunate to get third in the Constructors that year. I think they weren't the third fastest car, but 2 really strong drivers. And of course not picking up any kind of points penalties. 2021 though, they kind of fell back. They fall back a little bit in the Constructors. They fall down to 4th in the Constructors, but their points tally goes up to 275. So they're a bit closer to the front. Their average pole gap 0.762. So big under 1 second, and that would be really the only time that they're under 1 second in the turbo hybrid era. Then we get to 2022, the first year of the new regulations, and McLaren kind of come out on the back foot. Don't have a great start to 2022, but they're able to recover a bit as the season goes along. 159 points in the end, 5th in the constructors, average pole gap 1.227 seconds. So back above a second there. I believe Norris finished ahead of both Alpines in the Drivers' Championship. So you can make an argument that Ricciardo's really poor performance in 2022 did cost them 4th in the Constructors' Championship. Then we get to 2023, 302 points, massive improvement there, up to 4th in the Constructors and an average pole gap of 0.791 seconds. If I had to put that number into the first half and second half of the season, it would be about I think 5 tenths of a second there. So much better in the second half of the season. And for McLaren, the real question is going to be, are they able to maintain this form going into 2024? Are they going to be able to bring a strong car, a good car that can fight at the front for podiums and wins from the very first race? We've had 2 years in a row where they've had a really poor start, and they've kind of developed their way out of their poor start. So for McLaren, the big question next year is going to be, can they bring a really good car at the start of the season? I don't think they're going to be challenging for a championship, but if they have a great season, maybe they can challenge for a win here and there. So that's my review for McLaren's 2023 F1 season. I think obviously really disastrous start, but I think they've recovered very, very nicely. I think it showed the massive potential of these new regulations, the fact that they were able to move up so much within a very, very short time with those upgrades that they brought in the middle of the season. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.